injuries and hypermobility. This is part of how I started on this journey. I had a neck problem, and then I spent the next 12 years trying to put a name to it and to figure it out. And then I've spent the next 13, 14 years trying to figure out how to best, fastest put these things back together. And there's a couple really great things about this that I want to share with you. The first is that hyperflexion or hyperextension injuries have an additional issue with hypermobility. So what happens with a joint is that when you flex something to end range, so in this case we're talking about a neck flexion, when it comes all the way down and it gets compressed together, you want to think about the physics of this. Now, and a lot of times this gets missed, but basically when you compress, everything here gets crunched, everything here gets stretched. And disc herniations, because one side gets squished, it pushes out the other side. That's a very simple form. Now, when you're also hypermobile, that soft tissue damage means that you have more range to go into. So you can sometimes go farther than what the average person would have been able to go in the first place. And so they tend to have a larger effect. We see it with motor vehicle accidents also, where things that seem to be lower speed tend to hit people with hypermobility harder, because you get all this shear force where you just don't stabilize as well. And so then what happens is you have your injury, if you have surgery or whatever you have to kind of move forward, like you hit these timelines where they start expecting you to get better. And the problem is you don't. And so then they look to rule out more things, and you're still not getting better. Now, we know all tissue has a healing time of about 12 months. Some of the slower tissues and nerves, sometimes we think closer to 24-month time frame, but tissues heal. So once you're over a year, that injury is healed. Those tissues are better, but you still have issues. And so then, at least what I see, particularly in my area, is you start to kind of be pushed off to anyone else. They don't know why you're still having problems or why you're not getting better. So if you're lucky enough to not be treated like it's your fault that you're not getting better, or that you are malingering or whining or you want attention, then a lot of times they don't know what to do with you. And so you kind of get the shotgun approach where it's, well, we'll try this, and if that doesn't work, we'll try that. And we kind of keep running through things. Now, the biggest thing with this is you have to understand the most basic pieces behind why these things stay chronic. And I have seen them become chronic and stay an issue for years and years and years. You know, my own issues, I went a good 12, 14 years before I got them under control. But I've had clients who, it's been 20 years, 30 years of dealing with things. And, you know, that can be a really tough road to go. So the first step to getting better is to understand why they are perpetuating. And with hypermobility in particular, when you don't have that joint stability, you have to make sure that those tissues get the support they need so that way they can get better. Now, with our head example, when your head is forward and you get this herniation, a lot of times what happens is as you start to bring your head back, it'll pinch, or you'll get shooting pain, and so then we go like, well, don't do that. So then you keep your head forward. But all those soft tissues are trying to hold your head onto your body, and they're working really hard at it. That's why they spasm. Now, remember, your muscles are kind of like the bouncers of the body. They do all the heavy lifting, they do a lot of work, but they're not that smart. They don't control things. So if your nerve or you've got pressure on your spinal cord, any part of your spine, your head, all these things just lock up and spasm. And then those spasms are painful. But the key to getting out of the, I do something, it hurts, I spasm, so then like I go get a massage or something, loosen it up, my PT works on it, I feel better for 24 hours, that tends to be the magic number, and then pretty soon it spasms again, is you have to break this cycle of the position. You have to give your joint what it needs in terms of getting the pressure off so that it can heal, and that those soft tissues can heal and they're not being re-sprained. Now, the example I like to give in my office is actually an ankle sprain. Because people understand ankles, we understand how they work, you can kind of see them, so it's just a little more straightforward. If you sprain your ankle and it's swollen, it's purple, it's bruised, it's ugly, and it hurts, you know you kind of have to take it easy. You have to go gingerly, you have to be nice to it, you can't just start jumping on it. So you take that same ankle, say it's 4 weeks later, it's better, the bruising's gone, the ugly's gone. If you walk out the door and you start walking on your ankle like this, it's gonna hurt. And you know, you walk into a doctor's office like that and they're like, well, don't do that. You know, straighten your foot out, use it like a foot. Don't walk on in that injury sprain position. This is how most ankles are sprained. Or otherwise it's just gonna keep aggravating it. And if you think about it, you know, it kind of makes sense. Like, well, if it gets better, but if you keep going into that injury position, you just keep spraining it and re-aggravating it. So, sorry, fingers. If you can adjust it, if you straighten that foot out and start using it correctly like a foot, it heals up and does really well. So that's kind of the same thing with your neck, although necks are harder to see. But what happens is you have this injury where you get injured going this way, and then what happens is you never actually get back to straight. Everything is forward, so you're sitting and your head is forward, even if you're trying to use good posture. Everything tends to be forward, and it's really hard for that to heal because you look down at your phone and you're on your laptop and everything brings you back into that injury position, and those muscles back there get strained. So to let those heal back up, we got to get you back up to that good head position. Now, we also have the piece in terms of like the muscles, and this is something I see over and over again. You get a massage, you see your PT, you see a chiropractor, and everybody's tight through here, and they work on it and it feels better, and then within 24 hours it's locking itself back up. Now, you have to remember, these things are working so hard to keep your head on your body. It's an 11-pound bowling ball on a stick. It really is. And so like a little bit of forward can be a lot of force, and it's these muscles' job to actually hold that back. So if they're working, if we're trying to loosen them up, that tends to feed into that letting it go forward more. And then it hits that stretch point, and then they just spasm back into place. And so you see these spirals where you just kind of get tighter and more sore and more agitated. So if you can get your head back, take some pressure off of those muscles, don't make them work so hard, and then quit stretching them out. Everybody's like, oh, you know, it's tight, I gotta do this. You need to actually elevate your shoulders. Your shoulders should literally come off the base of your skull here, not be down toward the floor. And I'll tell you, my hypermobile people are all the ones where their shoulders slope down. It's like my purse never stays on my shoulder, my bra straps fall off all the time. And it's because you actually need to get those shoulders up. So if you shorten those muscles, get the pressure off of them, don't make them work so hard, they can actually get better. And they do. It's one of the really great things. We talk about a lot of the problems and the issues that are associated with hypermobility disorders. One of the great things about hypermobility is you have the ability to change. You have the ability to change your body shape, to change your strength, more so than the average person. So use that to your advantage. It's not a, this is the way it is forever, there's nothing I can do. It's about knowing the right things to do. And if you're stretching and if they're loosening you up and they're doing assisted stretching, I know when I was going through, I had spray and stretch. I had all sorts of like deep tissue, trigger point, And not that I don't love and use those things, but when you're going into an area that's already too long, too weak, and asked to do too much, then it just feeds into that problem. So we do want to kind of break that cycle. Now, the mechanics of this are the same. It's physics. This is not, you know, anything magic that like, oh, you know, it's just the neck. The neck, by the way, is, from what I have found, probably the most complicated part of the body I work on. There are so many structures and so many pieces that go into it, and so many things that can be related. But they all are subject to the same basic principles. And so when you bring it back to those principles, it tends to be a lot easier to understand and be able to correct some of the basics instead of getting lost in all the technicalities. So what that means is, like, if you hyperextend your knee, same thing. You know, if hyperextending your knee and you've injured it there, you have to stay out of that hyperextended position. You can't go, well, that's the way I stand and I always lock my knees. You have to learn how to not lock them, because once you go back into that injury position, it's just like walking on the outside of your ankle. That's not going to get better. Then every step you're kind of re-spraining and restraining that joint.